Still doesn't mean we can make predictions because, it might be the 50th decimal place, which actually takes the equations off in a completely other direction. And so actually the ideas of probability and chance are to deal with both of those situations, the deterministic and the perhaps genuinely random. But I think one of the most stunning things is, for centuries, we just regarded as this something that was genuinely unknowable, something which was outside the control or understanding of humanity. And then along come these two guys, Fermat and Pascal, who mathematize chance and actually say, no, we can make predictions based on the roll of a dice. And I think that was one of the most exciting moments in the history of mathematics, is that suddenly, a subject which doesn't look like it's got anything to do with maths because it's random and chance, suddenly we introduce maths to be able to help us to navigate. And there's a lovely story when Pepys contacts Newton and says, look, I've got this bet I've been challenged with. What are the chances? Is it more likely that I'm going to see a 6 if I roll 6 dice, or 2 6s if I roll 12 dice? And, my intuition just doesn't help me at all. I don't know what the answer is. But Newton applies the ideas of Pascal and Fermat and comes up with, I think, the quite counterintuitive answer that is you're more likely to see a 6 in 6 dice than 2 6s in 12 dice. But it's only using mathematics, I think, that you can overcome your intuition being rubbish when it comes to chance.
It is interesting, isn't it, that we seem to have a real difficulty in understanding chance events, understanding probability. We said several times these results are counterintuitive. Our intuition is not working.
I think that's because we're not very good at big numbers. So, evolutionary-wise, we've been used to just a tribe which has a couple of hundred people in it, and that's our data set for working out, what the chances are something. But actually, when we're dealing with chance, we have to take huge data sets to get a real sense of it. And our intuition just isn't built for that. We're still stuck in the jungle with just 100 data points.
Sophie, I was thinking that this is, again, talking about the intuition, etc., which is one of the problems we have, is people like to believe that we have common sense. But actually it turns out that common sense is very often not very useful at all, that it is based on all manner, sometimes, of bias hunches, which are connected to a story but not connected to a reality.
I feel like the intuition, the inner gut feeling I have is very rarely mathematical and logical. I feel like I was really messed up by a problem that other people might have encountered, probably quite basic for you lot, but the Monty Hall problem, which appeared in The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. And it's about, say you're on a game show, and behind 2 doors is something terrible like the herb parsley, and behind one is something delicious like the herb coriander. Don't fight me. You're trying to find the coriander, you pick a door, and they open another door that you haven't selected and show you some parsley. I shouldn't have picked these 2 things that look almost identical.
Yeah, exactly.
And so then they give you the option of using a different door or sticking with the door that you have. And the theory, at least that the protagonist in The Nighttime said, is that you should always switch, because the likelihood is that you have chosen the wrong door in the first place. Does that feel good to you? Does that feel intuitive?
I find it tremendously counterinstinctual, but I love the fact you turned it into the herb parsley and the herb coriander, because when there's the jeopardy of whether it's a goat or a sports car, I can really see people being very angry when they've made a mistake. When they go, look at this parsley goading me. I could have owned coriander.
Who would like to?
Yeah, I think the best way for me, I also found this totally counterintuitive when I first met it. I was like, why are you doubling your chances? There are 2 doors now, just 50-50. But the way that somebody explained it to me that really convinced me is, okay, what if there are 1 million doors? You choose one, then the game show host opens all of the other doors, revealing parsley, and just leaves one left, and the door that you've chosen. Now you're going to swap, because the game show host has the information about where the coriander is. And so they've opened all of the other doors. There's just one left. What are the chances that you chose the coriander at the first? The coriander is behind the door, which is left, and so you'll swap then.
What I love is that everyone at home who's currently cooking their tea and using coriander is thinking, what an incredible coincidence.
We've dealt with coincidence and wandered a little bit.
Oh, can I ask, though, about the... Because we had this argument, didn't we? I mean, we've had many, obviously. We don't get on. And... we do. And I think we do. Yeah, no, we do.
You're more common wise at times.
He always makes me sleep on the left. I don't like it. Anyway, so I thought this was about coincidence, and Brian said it's not. And I think he may well be right on this, just on this, which is we're talking about the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand, where the person who went to assassinate him ballsed up, didn't manage to assassinate Archduke Ferdinand, just goes and sits like, another failed assassination attempt, goes to sit in a cafe. Then Archduke Ferdinand's car happens to take a different turning to the one it was meant to take, and he's sitting in the cafe and goes, that's handy, and then does successfully assassinate Archduke Ferdinand. Now, I thought that involved a level of coincidence, the coincidence of the cafe chosen and the coincidence of the roadworks or whatever it might have been that led to Archduke Ferdinand going down a different street. Brian feels that wasn't a coincidence.
I think David, it was one of your definitions of chance.
I consider that luck, because he was lucky. I mean, not only the car actually stopped in front of the cafe, it didn't just drive past, and there he was still with the pistol. I mean, luck is a strange thing, and I don't believe in it as a force, but I really do believe in it as a good label for how things turn out. The definition I quite like is it's the operation of chance taken personally. Which I like. Again, it's like everything I was saying about chance, probability, and uncertainty. I regard this as a personal relationship to the world. These are things with a big emotional impact. And I love luck. I think luck is an absolutely fascinating thing.
You subdivided luck.
Yeah. The philosophers have done this under the idea of moral luck. And I find this really useful. Basically, three types of luck. Outcome or resultant luck, which is just how things happen to turn out at that moment. Circumstantial luck, which is where you happen to find yourself. And I think the most important one of all is constitutive luck, which is the circumstances in which you have been born. Your parents, which country, where the era, and everything like that. And that's incredible, and I believe that is the most important luck you can have. It's the privileged life that you're born into, which influences absolutely everything in the future. And you may think, I've done everything myself. No, most of what happens to us is generated by how we were born, over which we had no control whatsoever. My grandfather, Cecil Spiegelhalter, was in the Lancashire Fusiliers in the First World War. So he had, I would consider, quite bad constitutive luck in being born in late 1880s, just in time to be there as a soldier for the First World War, which is, that's bad luck to be born in that particular period. And then he had really bad circumstantial luck, is that he was posted on the Western Front and he ended up as brigade gas officer on the Ypres salient just after Passchendaele, which the life expectancy must have been weeks. Anyway, he lasted 3 weeks in the job. And so he was inspecting the trenches on January the 29th, 1918. Shell came over and blew him up, but it didn't kill him. He got shell shock, he was invalided out, and spent the rest of the war behind the lines. Meanwhile, his battalion was sent to a quiet section, which was then the Somme, just in time to meet the Kaiser's offensive in March 1918, when they were completely overrun. And he missed it. So he had a staggeringly lucky resultant luck in terms of being blown up at just the right time. He might not have felt that at the time, as he heard the shell approaching. He might not have thought how lucky I am, but it turned out that he was.
And I suppose that extends to your personal existence.
I wouldn't be here otherwise. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. And if we really want to get into philosophical stuff, what's the probability we exist? Because the chance of us all existing is absolutely microscopic. I've worked out, I was conceived in November 1952, and I've looked at the temperature records for North Devon at that time. And it was going through, it was a really cold snap in November 1952, and I know my parents were living in this sort of pretty unheated, stone-walled cottage. And I suppose there was nothing else to do. So, and so here I am.
Well, I think the fact that life formed at all on our planet is the likelihood of that, I think, has been analysed, and it's the same chance as throwing 36 dice and them all arriving on a 6. You think, it's a miracle. There must be a God because we've got life on Earth. But again, it comes back to this fact that we have a real big difficulty with big numbers. So here it's about time, deep time, that we have been throwing dice for a long, long time. And the chances of those 36 dice turning up a 6, actually, we might expect life to evolve somewhere in the universe, even if it is that rare.
Is there a way that you think we can educate all of us to have a greater grasp on big numbers? Because obviously in the past, when we've talked about things like evolution by natural selection, that's, I think, one of the reasons that some people are very negative towards it is, again, the enormity of the expanse of time that we're talking about for each modification to occur, for the variety of life to then be what it is now. And not having that understanding of the big numbers seems to be
Yeah, we just need more shows with parsley and coriander on, and we'll get it sorted, I think, so.
But I think, like, when I close my eyes and I imagine a million sheep. Sorry, I'm just
I'm worried
having
you're
a
going
moment
to fall
on the
asleep now if they start jumping.
And then I close my eyes and imagine a billion sheep. It's exactly the same number.
No, exactly.
It's exactly the same
That's why when you say, it's a 1 in a million chance that something happens, there are 10 million people in London, so, 1 in a million means there are 10 people that might be experiencing that. So suddenly it becomes less, 1 in a million sounds like it's impossible, but actually it isn't.
David, I remember one of your previous titles, one of your many titles, was Professor of the Public Understanding of Risk. Can you give us some examples of where this misperception was very natural, because these are very counterintuitive ideas, where they really matter when we're trying to deal with, I suppose, our own behaviour, but also our behaviour as a society? It really matters that we understand or have some handle on these large numbers.
It really helps if we got some idea of magnitudes. It doesn't have to be very precise at all. Just about what is important and what isn't. And we're very bad at it. Our discussion is always about the power of story, the power of narrative, the power of individual experience, which we find overwhelming. We're humans. That's what attracts us. And just looking at numbers can seem very dull compared with that. So I'm really interested in how, can we tell, in a way, reliable stories about risks, about, things we're exposed to, that actually engage people sufficiently so they can get an image of what's going on. What was the recent one? Everyone's making a fuss about artificial sweetener and Diet Coke. And there, no quantifiable risk whatsoever, and yet there will already be people will be starting court cases about that. And there will probably be people getting anxious about it. You kind of think, in an ideal, rational world, our anxiety would be directly proportional to the threat. But that's not how we are, because we're humans, and some things, for a start, we'll say, well, I'll just, take the hit, because I'm having fun. And so you'll do things that perhaps are risky. And other things you avoid, not particularly because it's a big risk, but because you don't like the thought of being exposed to it, and you don't like who's doing it to you.
Sophie, I wondered that interesting thing about stories may well shrivel with accuracy. Because it's like, we both work on stage, we both do, like that bit sometimes when we're telling stories on stage, you think, this is predominantly true.
Yes.
So that juggling between truth and, the embroidery.
Yeah, I think it's because we're so drawn in terms of the story to the unlikely. Like, we always want the rarer thing to be the special thing. Like, I have more teeth in my head than the average human. And I genuinely believe that makes me, your eyes widened so well. Yeah. I genuinely believe that makes me a witch. But that's like people with different physical characteristics, whenever it feels like the odds have been statistically low, then we want to attach a huge amount of importance to that.
Sorry, no, but how many teeth? Is it 32? Is it 32 teeth normally? Or